appropriate time. Okay, seeing none. There's correspondence. We have cultural comprehensive plan for the town. We got a notice on this, and I'm not sure, Mike, that we need to really address this in this meeting, right? I think everybody should look at it, though, because it is something I think we want to get more involved in. We kind of learned a lesson in the comprehensive plan that we didn't get as much participation as we wanted. So I think I encourage everybody to look at that, and then definitely we'll talk about it at the next meeting and make sure we take some steps to get our views heard on that cultural comprehensive plan. Yep. Good enough. Okay, the third item, which I think we can do quickly, is to approve the minutes. I believe everybody was here for the last meeting, so all of us can vote on it, which means we have a quorum to vote on the minutes. I reviewed them and didn't have any issues. I don't think either any of you have any questions?
No question.
Thaddeus, you okay with the minutes?
Good.
Okay, then somebody want to move that we approve the minutes from the last meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so the minutes are approved. Okay, so that brings us to our main agenda items, which are related to CPC. Charles, you're first to do a report for us. I don't know, if there's a lot to say before we get into the presentation.
There is
but I'll
not.
leave that to you.
There is not.
Okay.
It's these applications.
Okay, so are we ready to just move into that then?
Yep.
Okay, so thank you everyone for coming today who is here to present the applications. It might be worthwhile, and Charles, I don't know if you want to do this as a CPC representative, to just say before we start what it is that we do.
I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
OHC will review, which they do every year, these applications that are historical. They'll vote at the end of each application or at the end of the meeting on each application on 3 points. One is, will the funds be used for a historically significant purpose? 2, is the project an appropriate usage of CPA funds? And 3, is the project eligible for CPA funds under CPA guidelines, which means Secretary of Interior standards. So anyway, those will be looked at. I think as we go through here, we can do most of them pretty quickly. There's a couple that have concerns, and there's many of them that don't have concerns, but we just have to do the review. And I guess we'll just do it in the order in which they're here right now. And the first one's the Academy. And they're in the presentation, but the Academy, and I'll say it right now, is exactly the same thing we voted on a month or two ago for the shutters on the side of the building. Let me pull it up. It is a total of. It is a total of, I think it's actually 8926 is what the amount came out to, which is slightly different than what you have there. At least that's the number I have from the CPC meeting. It's replacing the features. It's being done to the same standards as what was done there before. We voted many times that the Academy is historically significant. They are following, which we verified, Secretary of Interior standards, and I would say that it meets it's a worthwhile project from the CPC perspective.
Right. So I think that was the only question, was whether the materials and the hardware were, and I think the last time we talked about this, that was the case, and I know from having correspondence with Peter via email that's true. So, is there anything that from the Academy that you'd like to speak about, or should we just go ahead and?
I don't think there's anything else we need to do. We can either vote on each of these separately at the end of them, which we probably should just vote on separately at the end of it. I would suggest that we do what we just said there, which vote that it's for a historically significant purpose, it's an appropriate usage, and it follows Secretary of Interior standards. And I'd make that motion.
Okay. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay, so by a vote of 3-0-0, we're voting to recommend to CPC that the Academy application be approved.
Is it 300 or 4? 'Cause
I'm
he-
sorry, 4.
It's 4?
Four.
Rudimentary arithmetic there.
Okay. The second one on here is Cho.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jay Stradell. I'm board chair of the CHO, in case I haven't had a chance to meet you, but I know all three panelists here anyway, so. I came with a dog and pony show, but I don't know as it's necessary. I think bottom line of what we're applying for is $50,000 to continue our management of collections that we have. We have over 6,000 items of Orleans history in our collection. And this is a project that we've been working on for the past 3, 4, 5 years or more, with some grants and support from the state as well as from this commission. So we just basically want to continue and finish the work that we've started in cataloging and taking photos and properly storing the items that we have in our collection, and making them much more available for search within the CHO. Anybody's welcome to come in if they want to do research or see a photo or see an actual artifact that they're looking for. We can go in our database. We know exactly where it is in our controlled storage area downstairs under the herd, and we can pull that item out for them. And so we've accomplished, not to get into the roots here, but there were about 400 and some odd boxes of items that we had, and with the help of Mary and Dave Hartford, who've been our archivists, we've gotten through, I'd say 3/4 or maybe a little bit more of those. We have about 150 some odd left, 139 left. 52 books, a number of scrapbooks and binders and other things that still need to be inventoried. So we really would like to continue with this work uninterrupted, so we have a good, solid database. The other thing we want to do is, we know that there's some large collections coming to us. Seacall Farm is one, and if anybody's familiar with the materials that were found in the old house there on the property, it's just volumes and volumes. The former owner kept a daily diary, and there must be 18 or 20 books of diary in that collection, along with hundreds of photos and a number of other things that are historically significant to the town, and particularly to the history of that site, that we know are coming our direction. And there will be some others as well. So we need to get ready for that as well as finish what we've got. And we also need to establish a protocol. When we get these kinds of collections in, we need to have a way of sorting through them and getting into them fairly quickly. Like any volunteer organization, you've got different people working on different things at different times, and they all have their own approach. We need to have a consistent approach in how we get to these items so that they're properly cataloged and stored and preserved. So really the bottom line of our request is we want better access for the collections for anybody who would like them, as well as our own staff. We need to more easily assimilate new collection items, and we really want to pave the way for the future for even more online access down the road. So it's important to keep this going. This was all started after a state archivist. We won a grant for a state archivist to visit with us and set protocol and a direction, and we've been following that direction ever since, and that was 4 or 5 years ago.
So I was going to ask that question, of whether you get funding from anywhere else.
Yes, we have, Ed. We've gotten funding from the state as well as the CPC.
Oh, that's good.
So, yeah.
And the antique dealers.
And the antique deal, thank you.
Jay, the other question I have is, do you you're not doing anything to any of the artifacts, right? This is all about archiving and
That's
cataloging. So there isn't a question of restoration, actual physical restoration to anything.
No, not really, although, and there could be any number of items in those boxes I mentioned, Ed, and not all of them are packed properly. So when we're going through those boxes, we're actually unpacking, we're examining, we're photographing, and then replacing more appropriately with the right packaging and so on, so.
So I guess what I'm concerned about is, one of the things that we're supposed to look at is whether the restoration projects follow the standards, from the Secretary of the Interior.
Yes.
And so do your protocols include what to do with something if if you open a box and it's, oh my God, this needs to be in a case, or this needs to be protected somehow, you've got some way to deal with it?
We do have a way to deal with it. The roving archivist that I mentioned from the state gave us an approach. The funding that we're asking for in part goes to consultants that we're using, Mary and Dave Hartford, who are professional archivists and know how to handle that stuff. So that's what the money's going to be used for, to properly preserve these items.
Great.
So I think I'd note, for each of these projects, we have a consultant who's a preservation consultant, who's both a lawyer and a consultant for this, Eric Dre, and he's done an opinion for each of these. His opinion on this was that in 2006, the CPA statute was amended to include documents and artifacts within the definition of historic resources. His opinion was that it was an appropriate usage of CPA funds. His opinion is not binding on the commission, though we have normally followed his opinions when he's done it, but it's not binding. It is just an advisory opinion. Bill, do you have anything?
No.
Okay.
I have to
I have a
recuse
couple
myself
questions.
anyway.
J.A., it's Thaddeus Herrick here.
Hi, Thaddeus.
So I just would like a better, sort of a more concrete understanding of what, or some examples of what these artifacts are and how they, would be or are used, and is it entirely a digital thing, or is there actually, a place, where you can see these things? It's just, there's a little, it's the first time I'm coming across it, so
Sure.
I just feel like I need a little background.
No, thank you for your question. These are actual artifacts. It can be of any size, anything from quilts to small pieces of furniture to paintings, textiles, documents, maps, ship's logs, et cetera, et cetera. And what we're doing is photographing, as I mentioned, and properly storing those in a way that they're more easily accessed. With over 6,000 items, we can't display all of them at one time. So what we try and do is have exhibitions during the year using those items and perhaps other items of similar background that community members might have that they loan to us for the exhibition. But otherwise, any citizen is welcome to come to the CHO or email us and say, I'm doing research on X, I understand, or do you have any items related to X, and if so, can I see them? And the answer is always yes, we can. You give us some time, we'll set it up for you, and you can come look at them. Everything that we have stored, or most everything we have stored, is in climate-controlled space underneath the Hurd Chapel. And we have, everything is done in archived ways so that the descriptions are common based on National Museum standards. Everything is classified in certain categories so that they're easily searchable and can be used in the future by anybody who has that experience.
This is not, entirely, I think, it's not 100% germane to the specific conversation, but I have learned that we have no records of which and how many historic homes and buildings have been demolished in Orleans in the past 50 years, or he was since 1970. I think that's maybe as far as we have demolition records. That's something that I'd be very interested in, and I would hope that others would too, because we don't really have a baseline of how many houses we're losing. Is that, the kind of research or archiving that, we could possibly do with this money?
It's really not, that area has been more the purpose of this historical commission and the Form Bs that the state has.
Yeah, but the Form Bs are already, they're still standing.
Yeah, they are, but there are some other things, we may have in our files some, we have a file by property address, and we may have some things in there, but we've not done any kind of a formal reconciliation of buildings or structures, beyond what we might have that people donate to us, but I think that's been more the purview of the Historical Commission.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of money, and for a very good purpose, I think, but it seems like a lot of money when we don't even know we're losing buildings and houses and we don't even know what they are.
Yeah, but I think it's pretty well known and accepted that records, particularly historical records, are not super accurate. And so, we're struggling with that, and I'm sure everybody else does too. So that's part of the problem.
My guess to your answer about a baseline is that we could go into the records of the building department and look at the demolition requests that have been approved and that we've approved over the past probably 2 decades, and get some baseline as to the percentage of historic properties that have been lost.
We have that. Michael was able to get that list, so
Yeah.
I have it. So if that's the case, I'd be happy to move on that.
All right, anybody have anything else on this application? Okay, so,
I have to recuse myself.
I understand. I would suggest that we do vote that it's historically significant. I would suggest that we vote that it's an appropriate usage of CPA funds, and that it does follow CPA guidelines, which also was the opinion of Eric Drake.
so you moved for that, second? Bill has to recuse, so one of you gentlemen on the video, if you would second?
Second?
Okay. Any second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
And Bill abstaining.
Jay, the other thing is, I would just, as a point of reference, you may want to, tomorrow, to CPC, in public comment, to talk, because there is a dialogue about funding less than the total amount, and you may want to have a dialogue in terms of, is that an issue, is that not an issue, and could it be done in parts? So just as a heads up.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Thanks, Charles.
Thanks, Charles. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, next on the list is the French Cable Station
Yeah,
Museum.
let me start with that. We got an opinion from Eric Dre that questioned whether or not some of the, it'll be presented now, whether or not some of the stuff would be historically, would be appropriate. It was different than the opinion of town council at that point in time. Eric Dre went back. He said he did not think it was appropriate, but he did his research, and other towns had done that, so he withdrew his opinion that it was not appropriate. So I just wanted to make that clear at the beginning.
It's a nice way to start, thank you.
Just 2 members on Zoom, a roll call vote probably would be better.
Okay, all right. Fair enough. Yeah, Bruce has joined us during the meeting, I should point that out. Okay, sorry.
That's fine.
Please.
My name's Mary Hartford. I'm here representing the French Cable Station Museum, which everybody drives by and nobody stops in to see. So by the slide you can see that they, actually, you guys can't see the slide.
That's okay.
No, we're good.
Okay, sorry. I thought it was on this one too. So it's been nationally and internationally recognized for its historical value and its innovation and technology from the IEEE. I think we all kind of know that part. So this is the same presentation we did for CPC, and I won't go into quite the same things I did with them. The station's history begins in Eastham prior to 1898, but since we're here in Orleans, let's talk about Orleans. That is the same building that still sits there on the corner of Cove Road and 28. The station operated continuously from 1898 to 1959, with the exception of World War II, when it was sort of decommissioned for obvious reasons. The last superintendent got word in late, around Thanksgiving in 1959, that the station would be closing. And he basically got up from his desk, locked the door, turned out the lights, locked the door, and left. And it wasn't until 1971 where Mr. Nichols and 9 other people decided to raise money to purchase the building from the French government and preserve it as a historic piece of Orleans history. You can see when they got it, it was in pretty rough shape, and they did a lot of work to clean it up. This is as it stands now. We've been funded by CPC, Orleans Cultural District, and a lot of private donations, and we've accomplished exterior work and interior work, which I don't need to go over in total here. I think it speaks for itself. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. So the first part of our grant is interpretive science, and just because you guys are all into history, these are photos that I found on the Library of Congress. They're from the Historic American Engineering Record, which I never even heard of. But it's interesting. Just one thing I wanted to point out, the doors, the double doors on the back, the little shed, had been replaced with a single door, and we're about to go back to that, so we're very excited about that. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. You can see the cable reel is there also, just as a reference point. So the interpretive science we found out from the Historical Commission, the company that built these historic markers you have around town, and we think it would be appropriate to put a small 18 by 24 one in the front of the building and a larger one in the back. And the back isn't really super intuitive as to why we'd want to do that, but that parking lot is used for overflow for the Yacht Club and Addison Gallery all summer long. So we have people slowly walking through that parking lot all summer. And it looks pretty much like that. There's nothing that tells you what's what. And I think it's a real lost opportunity in trying to explain the history of Orleans. And I don't think I need to make a case why I think interpretive science would fall under the CPC preservation and section. I think it kind of stands for itself. You've all done this in the past. So that's the first part of our grant, and the second part is the cable reel. This is the original cable reel that was used for repairing brakes in Town Cove. It needs to be lifted. The concrete underneath of it needs to be repaired, and the wood structure needs to be evaluated for its safety. People go to that first thing when they come to the station. It's a really great.
And do you have a date on how old that is?
I don't. I could look into it for you.
I'm just curious. It's somewhere between 1898 and 1959.
Right.
Exactly. Okay.
Yes, yeah. I mean, they were fixing brakes in the cable right from the beginning. There's a whole room in the building that explains how they found the brakes at deep sea. And
so you said that the wood structure has to be evaluated. If the wood structure turns out to need replacement, will this grant be used to do any of that replacement?
If it doesn't cover it, the station would cover it.
I think that it would. One of the things you'd want to make sure is that whatever was done to that structure that's holding up the cable also met the Secretary of the Interior standards for preservation. In other words, the material should be similar.
Oh yeah, it's I think it's some sort of pressure treated wood. It's nothing too complicated there. So, okay, and then the next part of these interior displays. So if you haven't been in the Cable Station Museum, it has sort of the same feel as a house museum does, where it's set up so that it really takes you back in time. It's sort of an immersive experience. And house museums and a museum like this really helps people get back into exactly what was happening in town at that time and the people who lived there, which is what really engages people. So keeping that in mind, we have kept the museum as close to what we believe it was set up as possible. We've added some signage that has been funded by the CPC. We've added some photographs that we found in the archives, primarily photos of past operators and superintendents whose descendants still live in Orleans. Another way of engaging people in the community into what's going on there, seeing their relatives on the wall. So because of it, it's a wonderful thing, but it's also limiting because we can't really do a new exhibit anywhere except for this hallway. So the hallway never had anything in it, so adding something isn't really going to be an issue. We are thinking that a timeline would be, it's a perfect place, a long, narrow hallway. And it doesn't interfere with any of the operations of the station, but it gives us an opportunity to inform the public of where you're standing in time and space and what's happening around you at that time, gives you context. This style of timeline, we don't do anything that's slick there because we don't want it to look like 2026. And the neat thing about a timeline like that is you could, on different anniversaries, expand different parts of it. So Attack on Orleans was a big thing with the station, that could be expanded, or an anniversary of Lindbergh's landing in France. The communication came through that cable, that could be expanded there. On the other opposing wall, we're thinking of highlights from the archives, which is something I've seen frequently in museums I've visited, where they have a whole section of things we just found. And it's amazing, it's like a magnet for tourists. They love to go and see what's new. And that would be a place where we could show that off. And also building community within the historic community here and surrounding towns. So Eastham obviously has a big connection to this. This space, as does the Cho, has information about the cable station as well. Tying these things together in a way where people can just walk up and see what's happening, different events and things, would be a big boon to the display. So then the last thing, part of this grant, a transcription of digitized documents. So at this point, we have scanned over 3,000 pages. So the first picture there on the right shows a book scanner. It's that small T-shaped piece of equipment on top of the two books. It's raised up so that it can get a good angle of that large book. These books are full of everything you can imagine that would go in. It's like they didn't throw anything away. It's really fabulous. And some of them are 600, 800 pages, and there's a lot of them. They've been digitized, not all, but we're still working on that piece. A lot of them, because it's the French cable station and a French company, a lot of them are written in French, and longhand French, and longhand English, which is very difficult to sit down and just get anything out of it without studying it. So transcription would really give people access to this material. So the thing about transcription is it's very time consuming. So looking at crowdsourced transcription, which has been utilized by NARA and the Library of Congress, has worked out really well for them, and I think that's a great model for us to think about. This is just an example, you can read it, excuse me, of letters that we've been able to transcribe, and it helps people realize, these are just people working just like now. They have problems and they solve them, and they have respect for their, it definitely shows the respect that the superintendents had for their employees, which is a wonderful thing to see, and just helps us tie ourselves, connect to the past. So the crowdsourced transcription would mean, I can explain it more, but just in general, we would upload the documents to a site that is a crowdsourced site. They would then send out that information, let their whole database know that this is now available for transcription. Then people log on from their homes and transcribe it. And they use, because you're using a platform that's for transcription, it has best practices built into it. Usually on the NARA site, I don't know if you've seen it, but they'll put the two pieces, the one you're transcribing and the one you're typing side by side. And they're pretty advanced, and it works great. The National Archives has archived over 2 million pages that way. It's crazy, the number of people, it's a thing. And the Library of Congress has also done pretty well with it. Now, that Historical Society of Cheshire County is a really neat story that I think kind of ties in here in Orleans. They had their Historical Society, this is up in Keene, New Hampshire. The Historical Society, the high school, and Keene State all got together to do a crowdsource of their archives. And they actually brought people together, like 20 at a time in a classroom, to show them best practices. And what a great thing that would be. And when you think about Orleans and the number of people that go to lifetime learning in this town, and the number of people who teach it, who just need to know this exists. And if you tie them all together, it could be a really big help to preserving history in this town, which we definitely need to engage more people in. I don't have to tell you guys that one.
Has some of this been done as translation and transcription at the same time? Because you're
Sure.
saying you're going to have to do translation as well as
Yeah,
transcription.
I mean, hopefully there'll be some French speakers interested in, we actually ran into one at the Cho last summer. She came in wondering, why is Orleans called Orleans? And she was from the French Navy. And I happened to be there when she came in, and we talked, and she came over to the station and helped us transcribe some things. They were very interesting. She was very excited about it. So that would be really fun to have, international. And another connection that we've made recently with a library in Brest, which is where the cable starts. They have these photos from 1898 that were taken by an engineer on a French cable ship in Orleans, I've never seen before. Pictures of people getting on and off the train, pictures of South Orleans, all over the place. And these kind of connections just help build. I'm getting a little off track, but I'm just kind of excited. So and I'm looking at Bill, and he's very happy.
I'm just curious, what's the margin of error when you get a transcription or translation? I would suppose that with the translation it would be like a little higher.
I suppose with the translation, it depends on the proficiency of the translator, but the way the Library of Congress, I believe they take 5 different versions and average it. I can assure you it's better than AI.
Yeah.
So some of the things I see on AI through Ancestry are just horrific translations of things. So I'm sure this would be better than that. And then finally, just an overview of the budget that we have, a fairly modest budget. The cable station has come to the CPC several times for, I think this is maybe the 5th grant, so we come for different things and try to come in very small bites, trying to manage just what we can. It's a very small volunteer organization, and try to make that money go just as far as we can. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Well, as Charles said, we did have an opinion that was unfavorable, at least in part, on this, but that's been resolved. So I don't think there's an issue with eligibility. I think if unless you guys have any further questions, we should probably go ahead and vote.
Can I just ask what the extent of the exterior signage is? It's just 2 examples, but how many would there be?
The exterior signs? Just those 2.
Just those 2?
Yeah. One front, one back. A smaller one in the front. Most people come to the station through the back, and having one at street side, there's just not that many pedestrians along that stretch, so I'm not sure that's really valuable.
I think it'd be
Just
helpful.
out of curiosity, since you raised it, how many people how many visitors do you have in the course of like Memorial Day to Labor Day, or even in a year?
Well, the season runs from mid-June to usually the first part of October, sometimes into mid-October. They're open only 3 days a week, only from 1 to 4. Each time they're open requires at least 2 guides. Everything is done with a personal guide there. So it's pretty labor intensive. They need a lot of volunteers to keep it open just those hours. I can't speak to this past year, but I know in past years, they've had up to 1,000 visitors, international and from the States, visit in a season.
Yeah, the hours are pretty limiting. I know for myself, I've thought about going a few times, and every time I thought about going and looked at, it was closed, so.
Yeah, another thing that permanent outside signage could help with a website that would instruct people that they in fact can call, because most people live locally year-round and would be happy to give a tour at any time. We actually have a little team of 3 guys who meet every week to try and restore some of the equipment, and it's really amazing what they've been able to do with making siphon recorders work again and things like that. Just very exciting to have something hands-on that's actually happening in the museum, even when it's closed, so.
I
people
think
are
it would
there.
be helpful if you would, if you can give us the contact on the people doing the informational signing that could be of interest in some other places for the Historical Commission where we've discussed signing and that type of stuff. So I think that contact would,
Sure, yeah.
so we can make sure we know what it costs and that type of stuff would be helpful.
Yep, I have the specs here too.
Yeah, well, we don't have a copy, we should
Oh.
have it.
A quick question about the exterior signage in the front. Is there a reason why it can't be larger? It certainly can't be an issue of cost, and unless it's a DPW issue. It's not that obvious as you drive past that that's a museum, obviously. And having some signage that was more prominent out front might stimulate some interest. So is there a reason you've chosen to have a smaller sign further back?
Cost is part of it, but, I mean, we could do anything. We just wanted to keep it low profiles to not detract from the building, and it fits in with other signs like it around town. And people do park in the back and walk around to the front, and then they look in the windows, and, you know, an informational sign there would be useful for, we're really thinking pedestrian traffic more. Nobody's really looking that way as they drive down 28. I don't think they are. I mean, we do have a large sign out there, but to change that would require architectural review and more funding. We try to have it lit during the evening hours as well, there's a solar light outside.
Thank you.
Do you, like any sort of long-range planning, what are the plans coming up? So beyond what and you get approved this year, what are you thinking about going into the future? Because as CPA funds either increase or decrease, we are all faced with, you know, thinking about the future, what are we?
Well, as far as coming back to CPC for more funding, it's fairly unlikely at this time. I mean, the transcription of these documents is we're kind of pretty much at the end. It's a very finite collection for obvious reasons. I think there are other places we can go for marketing help. And like I said, we've been picking away at this since before the pandemic, and I think the building is in good shape. They paid with private donations for a new roof. CPC's helped with the painting and restoration. We have a grant for even window shades. So the building and the contents are in good shape.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? I think we should go ahead and vote. I would suggest that we do vote that it's for a historically significant purpose. And I would also note we've done that many times before for this building and similar type of stuff, that it's an appropriate usage of CPA funds, and the project is eligible under CPA guidelines.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, I'm going to do a roll call, as Mike suggests. So Bruce, aye or nay?
Aye.
Thaddeus?
Yes. Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Aye, and Charles?
Aye.
Okay,
5-0.
5-0-0. Comments?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think what I would do next, because I think it's going to be relatively quick, and I think the veterans is going to be a little bit longer, is I would do the schoolhouse just simply to, actually, there's two things. There's OHC funds for the Form Bs. There is no presentation on that. We've done,
Charles, I don't mean to interrupt. Jeff Boccaccio from the company, he's only got until 3:45, and then he can't, and then we may be up against that time now.
we are up against that, wish I'd known that.
No, that's fine.
Okay, then we'll do the veterans and come around to the others a little bit later. There are two veterans presentations here, so I think we'll do the one that he's a part of first of all, which is the Civil War statue.
Peggy, is Jeff still out there? And
He's on his way in.
okay. These were pictures that I thought were in that packet the other day, which shows.
Yeah, I included it. You
You
might
Hello, everybody.
show it.
Hello, Jeff. It's Kevin Higgins.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Kevin, how are you?
Good.
I'm on location, everyone, so you're gonna have to apologize my audio and such.
Yeah, you're fine, we can hear you.
You're lucky you have phone service, everybody doesn't right now.
Pardon me, sir?
I said, you're lucky you have phone service. Verizon's down in a good part of the country right now.
Oh, I see.
So I'm here to answer any questions, and obviously Jeff is the expert.
Well, let me start. We have two different point of view. We have two different opinions that have taken place here. One, let's see if I can do it. One town council said that basically said that he defined rehabilitation, and he said, and what it was. I'm sorry, I'm reading the same thing. He said the work on the statute could qualify under an ordinary dictionary definition of restoration. He satisfied the work proposed fits in the purpose and the intent of CPA. Our consultant has said that for an application to require rehabilitation, it must meet the Secretary of Interior standards, and the legal opinion didn't deal with whether it met or didn't meet the standards. He said, and I think this is the key to the dialogue. He said deteriorated historic features will be repaired rather than replaced. Where the severity of deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature will match the old in design, color, texture, and where possible, materials. Replacement of missing features will be substantiated by documentary evidence. His point was that it was clear that the base needed to be replaced. It was clear, understand that the legs had to be strengthened, or something had to be done because it wouldn't vary the weight. It was not clear that the top part of the statue had to be rehabilitated, redone. I went and visited it myself, and I could, as a layman, I could clearly see that the legs were an issue. I could clearly see the base was an issue. It was not clear to me that the top of the statue was an issue. So I'm pretty sure everybody here would agree that this is a historically significant resource. I think everybody here, when it's all said and done, would agree that it's an appropriate usage of funds. And I think the question, and everybody on the committee may or may not agree with me, but I think the question that comes up at this point in time is, are Secretary of Interior standards being followed? And it's not clear from the presentation that they are or they are not. So I guess that's if we can resolve that or help resolve that, or leave it as an open question and figure out how we deal with it, I think that's where we're at as it deals with the statute.
I understand. Well, I think I'll let Jeff answer any questions in regards to specific construction of the statue itself. But our hope was that we would be able to take that statue down, be able to transport it up to Canton, and then do one of two things: either rehabilitate the old statue and bring it back and put it back up, or create a new bronze memorial from the original and bring the original back to town where it could be on display at the show or wherever, and then the bronze sculpture go up. And
I think that's where you run into an issue, because replacing the zinc with the bronze is not replacing like for like.
Yeah, I think you can do it, but CPC money is not available for that. Okay, CPC money, To do that, you'll need to rehabilitate it, use the same material, or if the same material's not available, a similar material, as it said, that in terms of design, color, texture, material.
Is there sorry, Charles, is there a reason that you wouldn't do it in the same materials? I mean, why bronze and not just recast it in the same
Silicon
material?
bronze.
Jeff?
I'd be happy to answer that, yeah, sure. So is everybody familiar with the zinc statues turn of the century and the reason why they used the zinc instead of the bronze?
I am, but I'm not sure everybody else is.
Okay.
Yeah, you can give us a,
Well, just for clarity, it's just, it was a cheaper alternative to stone or bronze. And it's a very brittle material. Can't be welded. It's joined together mechanically, historically with ferrous pinning, ferrous rods on the innards of the statue. And they're cast in multiple pieces, and then they're joined together. Oftentimes, they would leave the ends of the material thickened so that they could chase them down and make all of the seams disappear. Very, very fine craftspersonship that was, executing all of these, because when they were brand new, you couldn't see any of the seams. The problem, the challenge with the zinkies, is what we call them, is for one, they're it's a very brittle metal. In other words, you bend it this way, it will not bend back. It will break. Think of it as peanut brittle. Whereas a piece of silicon bronze is more like taffy. And it's weldable. Silicon bronze is weldable. So what happens to a zinc statue over time is the ferrous metal, the ferrous pinning systems, they start to corrode and they expand. And once they expand, they need to occupy a space. So they push the zinc out of the way and they crack the zinc open. That's evident that all of the seams are failing just by visually. It's very evident. So it is all repairable. I can take that. I did a giant St. Gambrinus, all zinc. I did a Diana in Stag, all zinc. It was given to me in 4 or 5 boxes, and I think we tallied it at 160 individual pieces of zinc. And we brought it all back together, and we made one solid statue out of it. I was simply trying to be a good steward with your funds and try to give an alternative to something that would potentially last longer. I also, upon first seeing it, was very concerned for public safety. And I think I had mentioned that in my current conditions report. It's hanging there by a wing and a prayer. I'm actually surprised that it's still standing. We certainly can take that down, and the way we would remedy that is we would take it down. It would more than likely, if I rigged that piece of artwork and I lifted it with my crane, it would more than likely come down in more than one piece, just based on what I'm seeing. More than likely would lose the base, and the rest of it would sort of come off in one piece. And then it would be a matter of removing all of the corroded infrastructure, opening up windows, and we would weld a stainless steel infrastructure within it. Point being is we cannot rely on that 100-year-old zinc to support itself. So we would re-weld an entire stainless steel infrastructure inside of the statue, and then we would use hydrometer epoxies and almost have little stainless steel rods that would go out and touch the inside of the zinc inner wall, and then we would epoxy those stainless steel rods in place and essentially just fortify the entire interior.
so hearing you talk about the craftsmanship and the sort of uniqueness of it, I think is what historic preservation is about. So to take this down, it's almost the same argument as you're restoring an old house and you're going to use AZEK instead of, cedar or something. To preserve it, it sounds like you need to do what it sounds like you're perfectly capable of doing to restore it to that zinc, at least on the outside. It's still gonna look like the historic statue that it was. If you're recasting it in silicon bronze, you're not preserving the history, other than there was a monument here, we're gonna put another monument here, but it's not gonna look anything like the monument that was here. So I think that that's perfectly, it epitomizes what the standards are about. It says, if you wanna call something historic preservation, then this is how you do it. And so I think that, the opinion that we have that says, if you're going to restore this, you need to restore it, according to some standards. I think that's an important piece of information, and it sounds like it's perfectly capable of doing. Now, we haven't talked about the cost of bronze versus zinc, and it sounds like it's a very elaborate process. It might have risks and it might be expensive. I don't know the answer
But
to any of that.
that's not the purpose of this
Right,
committee.
it's not. The purpose of the, right, you're right. The vote we have to make is whether the restoration adheres to the standards. And it sounds like in order for them to do that, this statue has to be restored in zinc.
I want to
Well, can I just say, it would be helpful to know, I mean, I imagine there's a number of zinc statues in New England, and
No, there's 3 in the entire country.
there's 3 in the entire country?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
No, that's not true.
Well, that's what we were told, so maybe that's wrong.
No, that's absolutely false, 100%.
Okay, well, my question was, so if this is a condition that zinc statues have, how have the majority of zinc statues been replaced, in New England?
For precisely the way that I'm describing. I follow all AIC codes and ethics, and this is the way that we professionally, as art conservators, conserve zinc statuary.
Thaddeus, let me clarify a couple things, if I can. What's being presented here, I think, is an absolutely logical approach. Okay? What the question is funding. CPA will not allow, quite honestly, this funding to put a replacement statue in. The veterans can do this on their own, and that's up to them. But CPA funding can't allow this. And I'll give you an example of something that's similar. The Academy, which I think everybody's probably familiar with, had an application to redo all the shingles, all the shutters, the windows and everything. And they came back with a presentation at the point in time, because it would save money, save painting, save maintenance, and was easier to do, of using AZAC on the exterior and using Andersen windows on the interior. It was not allowed, because it really was not rehabilitation at that point in time. It was really putting something different in place. This is a very similar thing. The CPA wording doesn't allow that approach, even though it structurally may make sense, but it's not historical preservation at that point in time.
Why is that in our purview, CPA?
Community Preservation Act, that's what the money is.
CPC
money.
Because it really does seem to me like we're elevating, I don't know how to say it, form over function or something like that, in terms of the significance of zinc sculptures. I don't think they probably have a great significance from an historical perspective.
Actually, I'm going to correct you. They actually do. There's a lot of zinc lovers out there, and it is a part of our history. There's hundreds and hundreds of zinc statues peppered throughout the United States. Some actually absolutely stunning, breathtaking pieces of work. And I put this report together some years ago, and I'd just like to say for the record that it does logically make a lot of sense to me. Kevin, it does make a lot of sense to me with regards to, the reason why I said to put the object someplace where, didn't just get, thrown in a dumpster or something like that, because it is a part of your town's history. I think in the moment, I was just trying to make it safe, and hey, how do we get a representation up here of our Civil War statue, and know that it's going to be there for the next 500 years, and then take this object and put it over here, in of doors, where it's safe, no one can get harmed by it. We do this quite often, in fact, you know, for towns, municipalities, or museums where, let's say they have a piece of marble outside, and it's a beautiful object, and they still want a representation of that object on their grounds. But as you know, with the Industrial Revolution and acid rain, marble, if you ever walk through a beautiful cemetery and you look at the marble, it gets what we call like a sugary texture on the surface, and that's the marble just degrading. So what we'll do is we'll take a mold of it, and then we'll take that marble, we'll put it indoors, and then we'll replace it with something that looks exactly like the marble, right down to the color. And that was one other thing that I did want to mention, that if you did decide to go in the direction of silicon bronze, we do what's called a hot patina, where we heat the metal and we use various chemicals. And I have the ability to make that piece of bronze look exactly like a piece of zinc. So just wanted to offer that up and make those clarifications for you.
Could I ask this question? What has perhaps been your experience in Massachusetts with organizations that are making application for the use of CPC funds? Have you run into this conversation before?
I think I have once before, yes. I think I have.
And how was that resolved?
I quite honestly do believe that we did end up preserving the original.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And where does it stand with you guys are using this interior department kind of standard? Where does it fall on that scale?
You mean, well, Charles read what the standard was. It basically says you have to use similar materials when available.
Well, the actual standards are about 170 pages, so.
And they've been amended.
It's much more than just that. The standards are very voluminous.
And if I could, with that, the referral to the Historical Commission is, as you laid out the 3 steps, A is the big one, the historical significance. That is what the CPC is looking for direction on. Second is with it being 170 pages, I don't think you are experts on necessarily what is in there, so they're looking for an advisory opinion there. And then third, they do have, the third piece is more of a CPC piece, is whether or not it applies for CPC.
Right.
They will take any advisory opinion from this group, but CPC will ultimately make the decision as far as dollar amount and whether the project.
Yeah,
We've always given an advisory on following standards, and if there were, and many of the grants that have been written that the grantee needed to come back to the Historical Committee and give a presentation on why it met the standards before the work was started. And to be quite honest with you, I would recommend that get done here at this point in time. You're correct, we don't have the technical expertise to do this, but before the work gets done, there should be a review process that comes forward, and that would be the Historical Commission that would do that. So, I'm going to recommend that it is historically significant. I'm going to recommend that it's work that should be done, but I'm also going to recommend that into the grant, not a caveat, but a clause is put that before any work gets started, that it has to come back with the plans and show how it fits Secretary of Interior standards. And I'm positive, after listening to the gentleman on the screen, that it's going to work out in that type of stuff. I'm sure he has the expertise. I'm sure he can present to us that get done. I think everybody wants to get it done. I think there's just a question. They're open questions. And what I just said, and I actually drafted something as a proposal for people to look at. I think would if everybody here on the committee agrees, would fit that. Would do that. Would allow you to get it done, and just would put a review process in place.
Yeah. My understanding of our charge from CPC is not just to say, yes, it's historically significant, but also to say that the application as written is itself eligible for preservation money which requires that the standards be met. So I'm not sure they're as disentangled, Mike, as that, but I agree with Charles's summary there. I mean, it sounds like if you wanted to restore this, Kevin, you could. And I understand that that's always a question of money as well as, other things like safety but I think that as Charles outlined it, I'd be comfortable with that, and CPC is free to take our advice or not, depending on where they feel they are in terms of the standards in the statute.
They've never not done it, but that doesn't mean they won't do it this time. But I do, one question I do want to do. Statues have historical significance, not just with the actual statues, but in the locations in which they're at. This came up with a stone, where there's an evaluation, and so I saw the stone was not moved, that you put a duplicate in there, that the ground in which it's at is significant, takes on significance, and there's actually some rulings that support this, take on significance that can be every bit as significant as the statue or the stone or whatever it can be. So, if you were going to take this and move it into the I think we'd have a problem with that. But in its own location going forward, I think it's a good project, and I think should be done. Any other comments?
No, are we gonna vote on this one separately, or are we gonna?
No, I'll read, because I knew that this was gonna be more
Well,
complex.
should we talk about the other one before you read them?
No, because I think they're two separate ones.
Okay.
They're really two separate ones. I did a draft of the motion and can change it any way anybody wants to. And the motions is that the Civil War statute is historically significant and is preferably preserved. The project is an appropriate usage of CPA funds. There's not enough information to determine whether or not the proposed work follows CPA guidelines, which means compliance with SOI standards. Standard 6 states that deteriorated historical features will be repaired versus replaced. If the severity of the deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature will match the old in design, color, texture, and where possible materials. Replacement of missing features will be substantiated by documentary and physical evidence. Evidence is submitted on the deterioration of the base and legs. There's been no evidence at this point in time on the balance of the statue, though I understand from what you talked about the zinc, it probably has the same issue. Also, there's been no submission that the work there will follow SOI standards. Based on the above, the recommendation of the OHC is that the work be approved, but requiring the warrant article prior to the start of the work, a presentation showing the work to be done, including materials to be used, showing compliance with CPC standards to the OHC and approval of OHC prior to the beginning of the work.
So that might be the longest motion that OHC.
No, it's not the longest, but I'm trying to make it clear.
Yep, it's definitely clear.
I'm trying to make it clear.
I think maybe as part of that too, if we could see examples of statues that, were recreated in bronze, but to look like zinc, side by side, that would be interesting.
Thaddeus, I don't think we have that option, quite honestly. I
It
don't
would
think
be
we have,
inter-
I don't
that
think
would
we
be
have the
interesting.
option of doing bronze. I think that would be outside CPC guidelines.
Well,
I don't know that we need to, it would be interesting, but I don't think that it's part of our process for advising CPC. I mean, as a separate thing, if we want to talk to the veterans folks about, doing something and getting, collaborating on that, I think we could do that. But I think in order for us to make a recommendation to CPC, I think, you know what I'm saying, it might be a complication that we don't really need. So, is that your motion, Charles?
That was written up as a motion. It can be changed any way anybody wants.
Does anyone want to second that motion? As written?
Second.
Bill seconds it, okay. I'm gonna do roll call again.
okay, I apologize for the confusion. I think it's a good discussion, and I love the statue, and I want to see it survive, and look exactly like it did. But I didn't, when you, in your language, it sounded like the interior guidelines did allow for, if it's not able to be, rebuilt as is, that it did allow for.
Yeah, you make a good point. There is some discretion there in terms of who gets to decide what's feasible in terms of, something that's deteriorated to a point, and who gets to decide what's permissible as a replacement. So I hear what you're saying. I think, I don't think we can make that kind of a decision today. So I think Charles is.
Well, let me just,
Yeah.
the experts that sit here said it can be repaired with zinc.
Yeah, I know.
So we know it can be, the fact that it can be repaired with zinc, I think takes away all flexibility of repairing it with a different material. I don't think at that point in time there's any flexibility.
Yeah.
I think that your motion as written allows us to kind of punt that decision until we look, somebody comes back and says, this is what it's gonna take to do it. And so I think that is not necessarily open and closed, because I think feasibility also has to consider other factors, like the cost and other things. So
Yeah.
No,
One of the-
actually, it isn't cost.
If I could just
Cost
add
is not a component.
a footnote. I mean, one of the standards basically says, original zinc casting seams, joins, tooling marks, and historic finishes must be retained. Do not rework surfaces to look like bronze or stone. And, then it runs down, because I just pulled it up.
Right, so, which I think goes back to Charles's point here,
Yeah.
that what we need is to see a more detailed proposal for the restoration. So I think we can provisionally approve this, so that CPC can do its work,
Yep.
get it into the warrant, and then we can make it conditional that it comes back and
Well, I gotta tell you, I'm quite comfortable after the presentation with the gentleman on the screen, that he's gonna present something that's gonna be acceptable.
Yeah, sounds
I mean, I have very little concern that that's gonna be an issue.
I'd like to hear the
Motion again?
proposal that's before us again in light of Charles's comments about if it can be redone in zinc, we should assume it will be redone in zinc, if I understood Charles correctly.
so are you asking for Charles's motion to be read, Bruce, or are you asking to see the application again?
No, I don't know who presented the motion.
It was
but
Charles.
Charles.
Okay, so I'd like to rehear that motion, please.
Okay. It's long, but let me just go back. The Civil War statute is historically significant and is preferably reserved. The project is an appropriate usage of CPA funds. There is not enough information to determine whether or not the proposed work follows CPA guidelines which are in compliance with SOI standards. Standard 6 states that the deteriorated historical features will be repaired versus replaced. If the severity of the deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature will match the old in design, color, texture, and where possible materials. Replacement of missing materials will be substantiated by documentary and physical evidence. That wording, as an aside, is from the SOI standards. Evidence has been submitted on the deterioration of the base and the legs. There has been, actually I might even take this out, I said there's been no evidence on the deterioration of the balance of the statue. I think we had a testimony today that the top of the statue was that, so I think I would take that line out at this point in time. And there's been no submission that the work will follow SOI standards, but I believe they've said they could follow. Based on the above, the recommendation of OHC is that the work be approved, but requiring the warrant article prior to the start of the work, a presentation showing to the OHC, presentation OHC, a presentation showing the work to be done, including all materials used, showing compliance with CPC standards, to the OHC, and approval of OHC prior to the beginning of the work.
I'm
Okay,
just curious, Jeff, are you comfortable with that?
I am, it all makes sense. I've heard this language in the past as well. So, yeah, I mean, the other thing I wanted to bring up was when we take a zinc statue and we bring it into the studio, and we put our little camera probes up inside of it and really start to understand the object and understand what the object needs in order for a successful restoration. We may think that the legs and the base are compromised, but there might be a hairline crack that runs all the way up to the armpit.
Right.
And that's usually the case. So the other thing, again, in the spirit of being a good steward of public funds, was the straightforwardness of the bronze casting process, and wanting to be able to give you a more accurate sense of what it was going to take to get a representation up there back on the granite base. So again, it is all doable, but there are more unknowns. When I'm going to restore a zinc statue, again, the St. Gambrinus that I did, it was about 9 feet tall. It was all zinc. And I told the client I might have to pull 70% of this thing apart to build an infrastructure to put it back together so that it's safe and that it's going to stand the test of time for you. The products that we use, they're all either Hilti products or Smooth-On products. They're tried and true, really good epoxies, the type of stuff that they, suspend panels in the inside of the big dig tunnel in Boston, And so it's very strong. It's very strong epoxy. It's all 316 stainless steel, so it doesn't corrode. But you've got to gut it of any and all ferrous infrastructure that's inside of it. That's typically what they did inside of those, is they would have maybe two or three pins that would come up from the base into the legs, maybe terminate at the waist or mid-chest. Because they must have had some foresight that zinc is just, you can break the zinc and you look at the profile of it, it almost looks crystalline.
Yeah.
It's just extremely brittle stuff.
So what the Secretary, the Department of Interior Standards basically talks to what you just said. It says rehabilitation is often used, restoration is more restrictive. So they allow for that to be taken apart, to use materials to preserve the character of what's there.
I think I would also note in the application that the veterans people made for this, the estimated longevity of the zinc option was written in, I don't know if this is a good number or not, as 150 years.
I believe I put that in there.
Well, that's not, I consider that long-term.
Well, I consider 500 years long-term, but that's just the way my mind thinks, because I deal with objects like this, and when I do, I'm a professional sculptor, and I have a foundry, so when I make an object, especially if it's made out of silicon bronze, I tell people, I tell committees, I say, if you follow the recommended maintenance program, this statue is going to last for the next 500 years. And I stand on that. I really do truly believe in that. Zinc, it's a different animal. It was, for lack of a better term, an inferior product right out of the gate. But there are those that absolutely, if you look at a beautiful zinc statue, they take on this beautiful, I want to call it like an elephant gray, bluish, they almost look like stone.
So our guy, I'm sorry, Jeff, I want to move this along. Our guy has been zinc for I don't know how many years, and
Right.
I think he could be zinc for another 150 years.
Right.
Maybe, I mean, this is interesting discussion, and I perhaps we can have in another forum a more lengthy conversation, but I want to move the meeting along, and we have a motion on the table here.
And one other thing I want to clarify, just one other thing. Would you replace the rifle? No, the rifle
I have to
disappeared,
be
but it is
honest
part
with
of the
you.
historic statue.
Is the rifle existing right now?
No, somebody stole it at some point in time.
Bummer. So,
But there might be pictures,
absolutely, I
there
would
might be
absolutely-
pictures somewhere of the rifle.
I would absolutely replace the rifle. If we're doing this, we want to do it the right way. We want to bring it back to its former glory.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of you guys, you know, taking all of your time and your resources to do this. If we're gonna do it, and this is just my opinion, if you do it, you know, full Monty, if you will. We restore it to its former glory. That being said, zinc is a very toxic metal. I've had people ask me to cast zinc for them in the past. I've done it. I don't like to do it. It's just a very toxic metal. That is something that we may consider doing in a different product. Maybe it's zinc, maybe it's a high durometer GFRP. But I think that's an easy problem to solve.
Okay, I'm gonna try this one more time.
Yeah. So I'm sorry to bring this up, because I know we're struggling with time, but I am interested, I would support the notion, given everything I've heard, that this statue be replaced with bronze and that the original statue be put in a place for good, safe storage.
Well, that would be a motion you'd have to make to the veterans folks, because they would have to find some money someplace else to do it. So,
Well,
We can't
Kevin,
approve
do you
that.
have a preference?
Personally, I would like to see, being a good steward of the town, the amount of money that's being spent, I would rather see it go to bronze, and then the sculpture that's there now, once it comes back from Canton, be put on display at the show. But that's just me, it's half the price, but that's, you know, that's not your battle.
right.
But I
No,
also
actually, there are a couple. CPC had no interest in a duplicate statue in the meeting that we had a couple weeks ago. I mean, they're.
You mean the show?
Yeah, no, yeah, they had no interest in any funding for a duplicate statue.
Well, it's not a duplicate, it's just the original, it's coming back.
I understand. My point of view, and I don't believe we have any authority to spend money that doesn't follow CPC standards.
Well, the other question is, if, I'm not sure we would be in a position to say we want to move that statue to begin with. Bruce, that's another issue, is, you know, there's some, as Charles mentioned before, there's something that attaches to the location when it relates to historical significance. So there might be a good argument for moving that inside and putting a bronze one in its place. I think that's, again, another separate discussion. I'm not sure if it's the Historical Commission, maybe it is. But I don't think that within the context of a CPC application, we're prepared to make that recommendation.
So what was the original proposal before us from the Veterans Committee?
It was to restore or replace that statue. And I think what we're saying is, we would recommend to CPC that they fund the restoration of that statue, or rehabilitation of that statue.
As distinct from that, we would recommend that they replace it with bronze?
I don't think that's an option for us to do, because as Charles said, that would ask CPC to spend money on something that it may not be eligible.
Well, it's not eligible.
Yeah. So.
But what?
May I make one distinction, gentlemen?
Please.
I think you know, in hearing how CPC defines, pardon me, eligibility, they state that if the object is beyond a reasonable repair or restoration, that it needs to be replaced with something of very similar, you know, look, quality, etc., material if possible, etc. I don't think you'll ever find anybody, I don't think you'll find anybody in the United States anyhow that's going to cast zinc anymore. It's just something that's just not practical. It's not really done.
But here's our issue, is that I think CPC funds might be available under a different category. In other words, but it cannot come from historic, that's all.
I'm not
If
sure
you're gonna
it would be available
replace
for
it.
different, I'm not sure what category it would be available under.
Recreation,
I just want to finish my one point.
That's a
though, if I may.
reach.
that's a breach, but it's there.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey.
So the only point I wanted to finish on was, so quite honestly, there's some factors right there that are going to determine whether or not it is attainable to restore the zinc, right?
Right.
One would be cost, right? How much money do we want to just dump into this thing before we say it's just not worth it? Or two, it's so compromised that it's just not capable.
And what we're saying, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. What we're saying is, we want you to go ahead and make that case, but we want the details in front of us when the case is made. So what we're proposing to do under Charles's motion is to recommend to CPC that they go ahead and approve this with the condition that you come back in front of us and say specifically what you're going to do and why.
Yeah, let me deal with the cost conversation. The request is for $120,000. That's what CPC is doing. That has a contingency fee in it. If it turns out that it's much more, this committee will not make that decision. CPC will make that decision. We've had times where projects got awarded based on a certain number, and it turned out that the number to do the work, because of either a bad estimate or inflation or whatever the case may be, came out very different. And the applicant went back to CPC before starting the work and said, we need more money. And there's been a number of times CPC has given additional money, and there's been times where they have not given additional money. So if it turns out that you got this and it was 10 times more expensive,
I'm sorry.
my guess is this commission historical commission doesn't make that judgment. All this commission does is say it's historically significant and that it follows standards.
Right.
That's the decision on whether or not to spend that money becomes a CPC decision. We're just advisory. We have no regulatory. I mean, that's just what it is.
Yeah. So I'm going to try one more time here. We've heard Charles's motion twice. Can I go on the roll here and we can vote yea or nay on Charles's motion and see where we go from there?
Yes.
Okay. We had a second from Bill, I believe, right?
Yes.
Okay. That is to you.
Yay, as long as it's characterized as you characterize it.
Yep, I think that's your understanding too, right, Charles?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bruce?
Well, I remain confused, but as long as I'm understanding correctly that we're going to get a proposal back from Jeff, I would vote yay.
Yeah.
Wait. We'll only do that if CPC votes yes on that. We're recommending to CPC. We are not the final authority on this.
And if CPC were to decline, what would we be left with?
Nothing.
That's it. We don't award the money, CPC does.
We only work here.
Yeah. We could advocate, that's about it. All right, Bill, to you.
Yes.
Yes, Charles, I
Yes.
presume yes on your motion, yay for me. Okay, so it's 5-0-0.
I'd prefer to enter in as an abstention, thank you.
We're gonna go back to an extent, okay, so Bruce is abstain.
Thank you.
Okay. 4-0-1 in that case. Okay, well, thank you. Thanks, Kevin. That was arduous.
Thank you.
Jeff, thank you. Appreciate you sticking around.
Thank you for the presentation.
Yeah,
Pleasure to meet y'all. You guys have a great rest of your evening.
thank you, you too.
You too.
Thank
My
you.
apologies to the Northwest Schoolhouse folks, but it's your turn.
No, it's
So,
not.
I'm sorry, oh no, I'm sorry, it's not your turn yet, we still have
one
Kevin.
more.
We have one more, thanks, Mike. We still have your other piece, the other piece of your thing.
I've got information, but do you want to
Okay.
articulate?
So, as my understanding, I believe it was a 2024 CPC application we had put in for $422,000. I know Bill was at that meeting. The conversation came around as to what the $422,000 was going to be for, and it was divvied up, it was diced up like a big piece of pie. There was the recreational component, there was a historical component, there was landscaping, I believe, and there were components that the town was hoping to be responsible for in regards to the infrastructure, et cetera, lighting and irrigation, because they were already pre-existing and they were failing. So and I've got the distension that came back from the CPC, that they felt as though out of all those components, we had to reapply for the recreational component, and the historical component only comprised about $40,000. Now, in my mind, and I know I'd be the first to admit, and I'll go on record, I'm the one that's at fault here. When I heard $40,000 to $45,000 was historical, I thought that amount was approved. And so when we were moving forward with the park after the second CPC application went through for, I think we asked for 200,000 and 750, but it got whittled back to 150 because they removed the sidewalk. We got the green light to get started. We had GFM bid on the project, and off we went. At that time, the World War I monument, which was the only monument that, well, the Coast Guard bell was also in failing mode. The World War I monument was integral part of the park, where we were going to have it removed, repaired, the new foundation put down. It was going to be brought in, turned, and replaced. I went ahead and told H.H. Crosby that the money of the $45,000 was there for the historical component, and that we needed to move in conjunction with the construction of the park. We couldn't do one without the other. He couldn't do the park and then come back in the fall to do the World War I monument because it was integral to the entire design. So Tom Blute went ahead and did the work, and when he asked me about mid-August how he was going to be financed, I reached out to the CPC, and they said that there was no money allocated from that $422,000. So that $45,000 that I thought was there was never there. And I was told at that point to turn around and reapply in the fall. So I talked to Tom Blute. I said, this is on me. It's my bad. I was wrong in telling you to move forward without having a confirmation that the money was actually there. But if you can put together how much you have spent on those items for the for that Veterans Memorial Park, I will turn around and do a second CPC request based on the amount that he's actually allocated at this point. So the $40,000 to $45,000 that was earmarked supposedly, he was able to do the work soup to nuts for the Coast Guard bell and the World War I monument for $20,000, which was the reason why the request for the CPC funds for $20,000 for a reimbursement for work that has already been done. And I know you're going to chastise me. That's not the way it works. It's not forward thinking, I understand, but it's my fault.
So I want to try to clarify for everybody here, because it gets a little bit complex.
Mm-hmm.
The request that was presented to this commission was done on January 18th, 2023. This commission at that point in time recommended, and it only recommended for the World War I monument, the Civil War rock, the Korea and the Vietnam plaques. It made no recommendation for anything else. And it recommended it's historically significant, should be done. CPC voted no. They voted no for a number of reasons. I think it also had to do with the tax status of the veterans at that point in time. But it doesn't matter, they voted no. The following year, so that closed down that application. The following year, another application was done for recreation for the park, which had to do with no historical component at all. It was approved by the CPC. There's several different components. One, we have worked on a precedent. Each historical commission is unique unto itself and is not bound by what the previous historical commission did. It's involved with different people at different times. There could be different facts that took place. So the fact that it was voted in 2023 for part of this work as historically significant is not binding on this commission, and it's not binding on the CPC either. Second, there's never been any. For the bell, there's never been any evaluation or application. It wasn't evaluated in the 2000. I'm reading the minutes about what was approved.
I have number 8, restore the Coast Guard bell.
I think, I've got the minutes printed here.
This is from Eric Dre, which is his breakdown of your,
No, but here's what was approved. Here's the minutes of the meeting. And the minutes say, for all costs associated with the rehabilitation of the World War I Memorial, the Civil War Rock, and the preservation of the Korean-Vietnam plaques, we vote their historically significant and appropriate use of CPC funds. That's in the minutes. Now, whether or not the bell was evaluated and was not part of that, it's not part of the minutes. That's all I know, is it's not part of the minutes.
okay.
So there are a number of conversations that
Can I
come
see
up.
that?
I also asked Eric Dre for an evaluation of, was he aware of the fact that CPC money could be funded for work that had already been done but not approved? And he said it's very, very unusual, the entire and he's not aware of it, but he said, not that it couldn't happen, it may have happened someplace in the state, but the whole CPC is a forward-looking document to fund future projects, as opposed to opening up prior projects and funding projects that have already been done which were not approved, opens up a wide Pandora's box into the future. So there's a number of issues that are involved here. There's never been any evaluation by this committee at any point in time on whether or not the bell is historically significant. I think it is, but whether or not, there's never been an evaluation. And whether or not the work fits is Secretary of Interior standards. There's not been presented to us for evaluation now anything that shows that the work that was done fit SOI standards. I'm sure they could do it, but it's not been presented to us for evaluation. There's a question of doing something that goes backwards versus forwards. It's a very unusual situation. I do think it's historically significant. I think it sets a horrible precedent, but that's going to become, I don't think that's for this committee one way or the other. I think the only thing we have to evaluate is whether or not it fits SOI standards, and we have the information to show it fits SOI standards, and that's historically significant. Whether or not the CPC should grant money going backwards in time is a decision not for this committee. It's a decision for the CPC.
Tell me, Charles, when you say horrible versus inappropriate or whatever, what is Eric concerned about as a precedent? In other words, is he concerned that other projects that went ahead without approval and now seek compensation for the work, as opposed to having this commission approve it prior?
Well, this is CPC discussion, not a historical commission. But yes, I will articulate this at the CPC meeting. Theoretically, somebody could come back for something from 1952. They could come back for something from 1925,
Okay.
and they could use this as a precedent for approving it.
I understand. Thank you.
I think that's a problem.
All right.
So,
But
but again, it's
that's
not
a
a problem
CPC.
for the historical commission.
No, it's not a
the
problem for the
CPC.
historical commission.
So
It's a-
our issue here is, I think, very simply that we don't know whether because it's already done, we don't have any proposal in front of us, we don't know whether these standards were followed for. But in the case of the bell, I went over and looked at it the other day. It's got a new base, right? So, right.
and the arms.
And the arms. So, I don't know what they did to the World War I monument. I couldn't really tell from that what had been restored. I mean, do you know what they did?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If you bear with me for a second.
Yeah, because if you have the details, and, we can understand that, then that might be less of an issue. Because I think.
20,000 relate to, what part of that does the 20,000 relate to?
Everything that's been done.
Okay.
So the Coast Guard bell, the rebuilding the frame, the new base. This was the old Coast Guard bell frame.
Okay.
They used a cutting torch and cut the top, and most of those wells were rusted through. unfortunately, I had to pull my pictures out for different things, and it's not here. The World War I monument itself was a singular piece with two wings on either side, and what happened was around the 70s it had been struck by a drunk driver, and they came in and they bolstered the sides up, but there were splinter cuts all along the side. And so Tom Blute was able to come down, pull the monument up, pull the wings off, and then he took one of the wings and created the new parentheses, for lack of a better term, to support the World War I monument, and then polished it and put it back in place. And he found that it's a very rare stone. It comes from Virginia, Roanoke, Virginia area. It's called a rose quartz, which is not very common, and it's relatively brittle. That's why it splintered as it did, but he was able to restore it, so it's...
So I think given that, we don't really know whether those standards were met or not. Charles, what I would suggest, and I think this is in line with what you're thinking, is that we're going to go back to CPC and say, we think these are historically significant. We can't judge on the SOI standards, and we're not going to make comment on, and that's all we say, because the rest of it is up to CPC.
Actually, as I'm thinking about it, I've somewhat changed what I was thinking before. I wouldn't have a problem saying it's historically significant, because I think it is, without a doubt.
I agree.
I would not have a problem in saying, in our best judgment, that it was done to SOI standards. We don't know it absolutely, our best judgment. But I would put a caveat in the third component, that we cannot affirm that it was whether it was or is not a good usage of CPA funds, because we don't know, because it's raising the question of funding a project in the past, and that's a CPC decision, not an OHC decision.
I think we're just silent on that. I don't see that we have to comment on it at all.
I would suggest we do. I would suggest that because I think that's ultimately the biggest issue at place in this. I don't think there's an issue with the work that was done. I don't think there's an issue with it being historically significant. I don't even think, the more I listen, that there's an issue with the SOI standards. I do think that I think we have a hard time saying that it's an appropriate usage of CPA funds. We're not going to make a declarative, either way, we're not going to make that decision. CPC is going to make that decision one way or the other. We do have an opinion from our consultant that said CPC funds are forward-looking, not backwards-looking. We're not obligated.
All he said in his opinion is that it's perhaps an inappropriate precedent, that's all.
Yeah, I asked him for a second.
Yeah.
So what I would do is just say, we're not saying it's not appropriate usage, we're not saying it is an appropriate usage. We don't know, because it's something that has not happened before.
And it's up to the CPC to...
Yeah, but that's why I think that's accomplished just by not saying anything. But I guess I could go along with something that says, we're leaving it to the CPC to determine whether this is an appropriate use based on the fact that the money's already been spent.
I prefer not to say anything as well. I mean, I think you just muddy the waters a little bit.
Well, I think it's the whole point. I think it's absolutely the point of the whole application.
That we comment that we don't know whether it's a good use or not a good use?
Well, do we think it's a good usage?
I don't know. I mean, we
willing
don't
to say-
make the funding decisions.
No, I didn't
I don't have
say-
a problem with spending the money, I have a problem with the issue of the precedent, that's all.
And I don't have a and I'm not saying we say it's inappropriate. That would take a step farther. I'm not prepared to do. What I am prepared to do is we don't have a point of view. We cannot affirm it's appropriate. We cannot affirm that it's inappropriate, because it's something that really is a precedent that hasn't happened before, and it's a CPC decision.
There you go, that's all. Just leave it at that.
I mean, I guarantee you that there's going to be a conversation on this very topic at the CPC.
And I think perhaps it is easier for Kevin to defend at the CPC than to have another 20 minutes here.
Well,
What do you think, Kevin?
I don't think it's interesting. I don't think you can necessarily defend it. You basically got a plea, you got a plea for, to make a grant that's different. I don't think
I
it's.
think as he began this evening, he simply says what he already said and allow the people around the table.
He's actually
to
already
make
said that. It's already been said to CPC.
I came in knowing I was gonna get beat up. I got it.
Well, no, but this,
Nobody
you gotta,
questions
you
the
gotta see
integrity of that.
what our
Oh, I-
role is
no, I
here.
understand.
Our role is only to do a couple things. And outside that lane, we would be involved in stuff that's not our role.
Oh, I understand.
You got it.
I just, to
Fine.
me, it was, you know, it was identified at one point, and then I went ahead erroneously and moved forward, and now coming back again, it's not a surprise, because it's already been brought up that this was what we were doing before, so we knew that this restoration.
Well, I was actually in the CPC
So
when that meeting got done, and there were a number of issues. Ended up, nothing got allocated. And there were a number of issues. Some of them had to do with the tax status.
Yeah.
Some of them had to do with the project. Some of them had to do with CPC not having enough money. So there were a lot of issues that
There
were
were,
involved
there
at
were,
that time.
there were a lot of moving parts, I understand that, and me as a layperson trying to understand everything that you folks deal with day in and day out was a little bit beyond me, and I thought, that's what I heard. And
So I'm gonna make an attempt at a motion here. So, as regards the veterans application, the Historical Commission affirms that the bell and the World War I monument and the other work were are historically significant items, that they probably meet the SOI standards, although we cannot be certain. The commission makes no judgment on whether the retroactive approval of the funds is appropriate.
Yep, that's fine. Can we strike the word probably?
Sure. You want to say something?
Some other
instead?
word.
Yeah,
Well, the
likely, how about likely means?
How about likely?
And the reality is, we approve a number of things meeting SOI standards where we are not experts and engineers and architects and that. So we make value judgments all the time where it may not be provable in a court of law, but we do that all the time.
All right, so if you like that motion, Bill, with that change from probably to likely, will you move that?
Sure.
All right, moved by Bill, second?
I'll second it.
Second by Charles. Okay, here we go again. Bruce, to you.
Aye.
Thaddeus?
Aye.
Bill moved it, and Charles second. And I say yay. Okay, so we're 5-0-0. All right, well, Kevin, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sure you've had
Sorry
experience
to-
that's much
sorry.
tougher than this, but.
Sorry to give you folks heartburn.
No, it's all
no.
right. That's what
Or
we're-
you.
Unfortunately, I'm getting used to it.
Yeah, I'm sure of that.
All right, now you can have my apologies.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I apologize.
I think I've seen this roll before.
Yes, yeah, I've been dragging this thing around 15 years.
Let me just, Eric Dre on this opinion did vote that this could be considered rehabilitation and was an appropriate usage for CPA funding. So anyway, that was his opinion.
I don't know the password.
Oh, Mike?
It should be on the computer. I think it's Orleans 23 with an
Oh, good,
exclamation
good.
point. Should be a sticker.
Thank you, Peggy.
No problem.
You're all over this job. Oh, wait a minute, I did it wrong.
Oh, we forgot to do Kevin back his picture.
23, and then there's an exclamation. Okay. I think I better be quick, because you guys are gonna be getting hungry. Okay.
Well, we knew this was going to be.
Yeah, now what happened there?
That's why there's nothing else on the agenda.
We want to open this. Just
You know,
open it.
4/3 of the heat goes off in this building.
So I went downstairs the other day, the heat was down to 55. I said, oh,
Is it
no.
Adobe Acrobat?
You know what happened, the thermostat batteries.
Oh, you just double click
I had
on
to
the
replace
desktop,
the
yeah.
batteries. I'm
You have
saying,
it.
all right, I gotta call the
I know,
oil
but I got
company.
this. Oh, there we go.
Out here,
Okay.
but it was the, thermostat, it was the batteries.
Yeah, the projector
Which
may
I'm
have gone to sleep,
surprised.
it might just need to wake up.
Okay.
Well,
Thanks,
it's not an
guys.
electric hookup, so I guess that's true. When the batteries go, they go.
You want to hang on to it, Mike?
I think you can be really quick on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can be real quick. Have you seen this? You did, yeah. Well, I would just say while things are warming up here, that we had gotten approval, from the CPC back when, from the Historic Commission, back when we started this 15 years ago. And so, as you know, we have complete plans. And but the architect, Fredericks and McLean, said that all this time has passed and we should come to you for renewed approval. And a couple of things I would point out is that this building was Orleans Community Center historically. And so what we're asking, it's a historic treasure in Orleans. We're asking to restore it to its function as a community center. And so to do that, we need to be ADA approved, and that means an elevator. And it came up, but well, do you need 4 stories? And the architect said, yes, you do need 4 stories. So that's where we are, and we have been in contact with the Orleans Cultural Committee, and we're kind of dovetailed with the Cultural Comprehensive Plan. So, and you guys have seen this, so you've seen some of the interior shots. We've got quite a nice facility here, a lot of big rooms.
So the question I had was,
Yeah.
I think this proposal is asking to add some money to update the plan, right, or update the elevator.
Well, right, as you know, building codes are constantly changing, and so that's gonna take $10,000 to get them, up to date.
And that's because it's been in the works for this long?
That's right.
Do you have any other stuff that's in danger of having the same problem? In other words, are you forward-looking enough to see that, there might be other areas like this? In other words, something is getting dated, and it's gonna cost more money because it wasn't acted on in the first place.
Well, no, can't think of any. I mean, so it's this whole elevator addition, and so that's, got all kinds of, building codes.
I quite assure you that as this moves forward, if it does, that there's gonna be additional requests for the elevator type stuff. They're gonna be very significant.
Well, I mean,
I'm quite sure.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing is, and you had mentioned it at the CPC meeting, so I've applied 4 times for cultural facilities funds. I haven't gotten them. I never had this much buy-in from the town. And what we're doing differently this year is there's really a first step that we just went right for the big grant. There's, as I said in the thing, the feasibility and technical assistance thing. So that makes perfect sense. We'll do that, and we have every expectation that we'll get that. So that's what we've got.
Like you said, I don't think there's a lot of question here, right?
I don't think-
We think it's historically
My point of view,
significant.
there isn't. But
Yeah, we think it's, you're doing all the right things in terms of how the restoration is happening. So, I mean, you've got codes that you have to abide by,
Sure.
that, the standards factor in, so, I think, that we're good on this one. Did somebody wanna,
Well, I don't know if anybody else has a question.
do you guys have any questions?
No,
I was curious on the dormers. I didn't see them in the online.
Well, that's a good point. When it was originally with the dormers, and then a CPC chairman in days of yore didn't like them and made us take them out, although it's not the CPC's call to do so. So the thing is that it gives us a whole nother room, and I mean, we're a small organization. We can, we could move our meeting room upstairs. The meeting isn't just that room isn't just gonna be for our meetings. So it just makes perfect sense. As a matter of fact, I mean, it was a real bone of contention, and I went to the Architectural Review Board when Will Joy was the chairman, and he loved the dormers. He said, yeah, it looks, really looks sharp with the dormers on there, so it makes sense. I mean, if you guys hate the dormers, I guess that's gonna be a problem.
I have no position on dormers.
I don't know, but my guess is it was a matter of money.
Doesn't pertain
I
to
wasn't
this
here.
application.
I'll bet it was money.
Well, I mean, so we're hoping that the money, is gonna come from a lot of it's gonna come from the state. But an interesting thing, Charles, that I did find out was that the considerable amount of money that the Community Preservation Committee has invested in this can be considered a match.
Yeah,
So I didn't realize that before, so that's a big thing,
yeah.
And if we do get, if we get the feasibility and technical assistance grant, then we're really in the chute for the big, cultural facilities grant. And if you get that, then big private donors see you as a legitimate thing. So we've got that, we've got the $700,000 or so that the Community Preservation put in there already as a match. So if we get private donations, I think we're good.
Great.
Like any of this, it's a long view.
Boy, I'll say, 20 years,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
really, 20
I know.
years. It's like building the pyramids.
So if there are no other questions, I would recommend that we vote that this is historically significant. It follows Secretary of Interior standards, and it's an appropriate usage of CPC funds, CPA funds, I guess, CPA funds.
So moved.
Second, you're seconding. Charles, moving, you're seconding? Bill?
So moved, or second.
Okay. That is to? Bruce?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
And me, yeah. Okay, it's 5-0-0.
So
And
make
again-
it easy for you.
Yeah. Paul, thank you, sorry
Yeah.
for the wait.
No, that's okay, it's worth it, worth the wait.
Oh, it's humorous, right?
Yeah,
So
well,
is there anything-
it's fascinating, really,
I'm sorry, is there anything going on right now that I could come and see the building? Is there?
yeah, we'd love to have you come.
Yeah.
There's an AA meeting every day at noon. Sundays it's 10:30. There's yoga 3 days a week. There's karate classes 4 nights a week.
So I guess you don't serve wine there?
No, we don't. That's a question with Oddfellows lodges. And one thing you don't want it to be is a gym.
Yeah.
And so we don't.
Well, maybe I'll come to a yoga class.
Yeah, if somebody rents it, and they can have a party, they could have, but we don't serve it. But, yeah, you've got my email.
Yeah.
Let's just set something up, and I'd love to show it to you.
All right, great.
Thanks
There's
for
the
your time.
online calendar on the Northwest Schoolhouse website, and the calendar's online, so you'll be able to see when
Oh, okay.
nobody's there.
All right,
Right,
great.
right.
Oh, that's good.
We're there second and fourth Wednesdays. for all
Okay.
meetings.
Matt is an odd fellow, he's gonna be the next leader of the Odd Fellows, so, good.
Thanks
I'm
for
Paul
coming.
Davies.
Appreciate it.
Nice to meet you, yeah.
All right, we had one more, which is
Okay.
which is our application.
I mean, we have to vote on recommending our own application.
Yeah, we've done it every year, and it's our own application, and it's been,
The academy, did you discuss that, or did you table it?
we did the academy. We talked about it, and they voted for that, so this is for the Form Bs. We've done it 4 years in a row. We'll probably do it 2 more years or 3 more years, depending on how it goes on. We're funding it about $25,000 a year. CPC's done it. My guess is they'll continue to do it again. I would recommend that we say it's historically significant, it's good usage of funds, and that we, and it follows standards. I think it's more pro forma, but we just need to vote on it.
Okay. A second? We got a second for that?
Second.
No second, okay. Bruce?
Yes.
Thaddeus?
Yes.
Yes. Ed, yes. And you guys are yes. Bill and Charles? Yes. Yes. Okay. All right, 500. We just have 2 other really quick things to do. I'm going to take them in reverse order in case we have a couple minutes we want to spend on the second one. The one I want to talk about is item B under 6, update and review the annual town report. So I made the changes that we discussed at the previous meeting, and that was in the packet. So if everyone is okay with that, I'm going to ask Mike to pass that along to Molly Bates to put in as our. Anybody have any issues with that? I don't know that we need a vote because we kind of voted as amended last time.
Thank you for your work.
Well, no problem. Thanks for that. Weighing in. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and give that to Molly Bates. The last thing that I wanted to say, oh, okay, thanks. The Form Bs, as Charles just mentioned, we put out the bid. The bid was awarded to Eric. So the question for us is priority, and in the packet you guys had, I hope people saw, what I was recommending is that we go after all of the buildings that Eric has identified in his survey that don't yet have a Form B. And the reason for doing that is because we're a little vulnerable in the case of the demolition delay bylaw. If there's not a Form B, it's more difficult for us to say, hey, we recognized already that was a historic building with significance.
How many are there?
There are, let's see, do I have the total number? I think it's around 200.
200, not?
No, sorry, 152, I believe, was the number.
And we have what, 38,000 or something like that?
We have, yeah, 40,000.
40,000, and how much per? And what's the
300. So we would not be able to get through all of them, but we would be able to get. What I'm suggesting is we do them starting the oldest ones first, which would get us probably through everything except the buildings built after 1950.
My point of view is it's logical. I have no other point of view one way or the other.
Did we have we resolved what constitutes historic? Or is it just sort of, is that fluid so that if something was built in 1968, we would say that is contributing to the character of the town?
So I don't think it's as fluid as that necessarily, but yes, there's some judgment to it that according to Eric, like he's looked at all the buildings built before 1953, I think, on his survey, so we have 37 buildings that he's going to look at for Form Bs that are built after 1950.
Okay.
So what I'm hoping we can do, that is we could say that everything that has a Form B is what we would consider something that was on the survey, the inventory of what we consider historically significant. And I think when we finish getting all of these done, there'll still be a whole bunch that have to be redone because the quality of the Form Bs isn't good, but at least we'd have a Form B. So we'd be able to say, if it's got a Form B, you've got to come to us before you can knock it down.
And we may have stuff that was done, I think Joan drew it up, Ron contributed heavy to it, a definition, about a one-page, two-page, probably one-page definition of what's considered historically significant that we do. I can probably find it in my computer, but I do believe the commission has dealt with that at a point in time. And I do believe we can change it, but I do believe there's documentation out there that answers your question, Thaddeus, in terms of what's.
Yeah, there's also a definition in the demo delay bylaw, but that one's a little.
Yeah, I mean,
ambiguous.
I think I just worry, I mean, I think, contributing to the historic character or, contributing to the culture and values of the town or something, so that you had some leeway if something was, within the last 50
Right.
years, but you didn't want to see go down.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Let me see if I can find.
So I-
You
I've
can
got-
take a look too, okay?
I've got a much more extensive, there was a one-pager that was in the packet if you saw it. I've got a much more extensive document that goes into all of the different characteristics of everything that's on that Form B list that I'm hoping we can talk about at the next meeting or the meeting after. And when we start to get into some discussion about the demo delay bylaw, I think it'll be, but I think it just on its own, it's interesting to see what's on our list of historic buildings and what the inventory of those is in the town. So I'll circulate that around. And before we adjourn, Charles is not going to be able to be here at the February meeting, so I just wanted to, if there's anybody else that already knows they're not going to be here, could you let me know? Because we want to make sure we have a quorum, otherwise we need to reschedule that meeting. So it's February, I forgot the date already.
11th.
11th, thanks, Bill.
Yeah, I have the joy of having back surgery at the end of this month.
Ooh.
No fun.
And I know I won't be here for February, I should be here for March, though.
Okay, I think that's it.
I have one just bit of new news. When I arrived at our meeting this afternoon, I noticed the draft proposal for the town of Orleans application to become a surf rider, ocean-friendly community. And as I just sort of looked over the language within this, it talks about partnerships and community engagement, but really there's no place in here for us, and I do think that there is. In other words, I think that the culture of this community around it being a surf rider, ocean-friendly community is part of our historic, so I'm going to grab a meeting with Amanda and see where we can at least be inserted into this language.
Yeah, I'm curious to know what a surf rider community is.
No, there's a whole, so there's ocean-friendly criteria.
Oh, okay. I'll look it up.
So I don't know where it comes from. It comes from the Surf Rider Foundation. So I don't know who's running this, but Michael said that he thought Amanda would be the one I spoke with. So I'm going to do that.
Hang 10.
You want a long board or a short board?
I will entertain a motion for adjournment if anyone is so.
Hey, let me just bring up one
Okay,
thing for,
never mind.
I do, but it's very quick.
Yep.
Pretty soon, you're gonna have to start, during the meeting, try and figure for secession, because
You think?
I am probably not gonna be here next year, I don't think Ed's gonna be here, may not be here next year, so basically, I think we both time out, so it would be an exception for the select board to,
Yeah, start
to
to
keep
get
us.
them thinking about it.
So it should be, it should definitely be a discussion at some point in time.
Yeah, that's a good point. Probably before June, we might want to do it at the March or April meeting to get it started. And if you know anybody who you want to recommend to join us, that would also be great. We have 2 openings right now for associate members if anybody wants to join.
It's the loss of the historic memory that's what's so concerning to me.
Yeah.
I understand that there's a concern about having a quorum, but more than that,
Yeah.
if there was any possibility that you would consider continuing, I would certainly pursue an extension or exception or whatever it's called at the select board.
Yeah, I'll have to think about it. I don't know if they'll entertain it or not, but yeah.
Well, I think we'd have to, if they let me stay, I probably would stay. But I'm not sure they will, and I'm not the favorite of a lot of the select board people because of some of my positions that I've taken, so I'm not sure they want me to stay.
I'm optimistic that they would vote in a positive manner. But, you know, I'm an optimistic fella.
Yeah. So I don't think this is on the agenda, so we probably should table it.
Understood.
Yeah. So anybody want to move to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Favor?
Second.
Aye. Okay, we're out of here.